The following are 12 of the best stories on r/petty revenge. Story 1. Apparently booking a seat on a train is not a real booking if someone else decides to sit there. I was travelling from Edinburgh to London by train and had a booked window seat with a table. I got on the train to find 4 guys sitting at the table. The one in my seat that was clearly marked as booked refused to move as he was with his friends, and the train was packed. The ticket collector passed and I asked him to help. He asked the guy to move, but he refused, and somehow that was that. So, what now? I asked. You can find another seat, but I have no power to move him. Only the police can move him, and they will not turn up just to move someone out of a seat. There were no seats free in the carriage, and probably not many free on the train, so standing to London was a possibility. I'm going to take a seat in first class. Better surroundings, power sockets, and free tea and coffee. You can't sit there? You don't have a booking? Well, you could call the police to move me, but apparently they won't turn out to move someone out of a seat. I had a lovely trip with power for my laptop and a wide, comfy seat. Story 2. Entitled, Parker Parked in My Driveway, so I blocked them in and got drunk all weekend. Friday night, I came home from work to find someone on our block was having a large party, and someone decided they were entitled to park in my driveway. Keep in mind my driveway is a single car width, lined with a retaining wall on both sides and a garage at the end. Essentially, impossible for a tow truck to come pull them out without property damage. Seeing this and the lack of street parking, I took this as a cue to park right behind them in my driveway. Now a few hours go by, and their entitled parker is now knocking at my door, demanding I move my car so she can leave. Seeing as they were demanding, I informed them that I had been drinking and would not move my car. The entitled parker then decides to call the police to get them to force me to move. When the police knocked on my door, I was sure to grab a beer from the fridge before I answered to talk to the officer. I had informed him that after I got home, I was unwinding and had been drinking and was in no shape to drive. At this point, their hands were tied because they couldn't tow her car out. I'm in no shape to drive, and I'm legally parked in my driveway. I ended up telling the entitled parker that since it is a long weekend, I would be on a weekend-long bender and they could come move my car after I go to work on Tuesday. Story 3. Dyed my hair blue so boss would stop blaming me for hair in customers' food. I used to work for a sandwich shop. All the other employees there were Indian women with very long black hair. Mine was sort of similar, I suppose, medium length and brown, but every time a customer would complain about a long black hair in the food, my boss would immediately blame me without any hesitation or investigation, despite the fact that I was the only person who wore my hair up and netted. So one day I dyed my hair blue with the sole purpose of not being blamed for black hair being in the food. You guessed it, it happened. And how huffy and annoyed my boss got when I said it couldn't be my hair because mine is blue was beyond amusing. Story 4. She charged me $1,200 in cleaning fees, so I cleaned her reviews. I rented a small event space for a surprise party. The place looked nice online, decent price, and the host seemed polite enough, until after the event. Out of nowhere, she hits me with a $1,200 deep cleaning bill. Said we left the place unusable, which was wild because we barely used the kitchen and left it cleaner than we found it. I asked for proof. She sent blurry photos of trash, not even ours. I appealed through the booking platform, denied. She was clearly running a side hustle. Scam a few hundred off each booking and hope no one fights too hard. So I did my own cleaning. I found her business on every platform I could, Yelp, Google, Facebook, event site, and left detailed, calm, 1-star reviews with photos from our event showing how spotless the place was when we left. Turns out I wasn't the only one. My reviews picked up traction. Others came forward with the same scam. Within weeks, her rating dropped from 4.8 to 2.9. Last I checked, she's offering 50% off all bookings. Guess someone's trying to clean up her reputation. Story 5. Mill kept guilt tripping me for not eating her Indian cooking. So I started bringing my own dishes and giving her the same treatment. Now she's suddenly not hungry, too. My Indian mother-in-law thinks that she is the best cook in the world, and that everyone, including her son and daughter-in-law, should beg for her cooking. Well, culturally, I'm not used to a lot of Indian food because of the spices, but I will try to eat the ones I can enjoy. A lot of times I'll politely tell her I am not hungry or I'll munch on some, but sometimes that's not a good enough response, and she'll start guilt-tripping me with "so you don't like my cooking" or "everyone loves my food, why don't you?" My significant other usually will jump in to stop her, but it always puts me in a weird spot. Since on day one of meeting me, she told me point blank that she doesn't like Chinese food. I'm Chinese, and it kind of threw me off because there are so many varieties of Chinese food, and for her to just say she hates the entire category seems odd to me. So I recently started bringing food I made whenever visiting her and telling her how excited I am to cook for her and that I hope she likes my cooking. She usually brushes it off, saying she's not hungry or that she'll eat it later. I turn the tables on her, looking sad and asking her why she doesn't like my cooking. It's very entertaining to watch her try to make excuses she knows are BS. She hasn't asked me to eat her stuff since, so I guess this petty revenge is working. Story 6. Boss chiseled me out of $100 and paid the price. I'm a contractor. While working on a project in a very remote location, I arranged to buy and bring 2 rounds of breakfast tacos for the staff of the county facility where I would be working for the next week in exchange for free copy privileges. The boss gave approval on the phone, and the total for the tacos that week came out to just over $100. A great exchange as the copy budget was upwards of $1,000. My receipts, along with the supporting CC statement I submitted at the end of the billing cycle, between a week and 2 weeks after he'd verbally approved the expense, was declined. I wasn't too angry, but a deal's a deal, and I called the boss to remind him he'd approved the expense. His response, "You should have gotten it in writing," pissed me off royally, but I finished the project as promised and was working on another project for another client less than a week later. A couple of months go by and the boss who chiseled me out of the money called to see if I was available to work on another project. Beginning on the 1st of the next month, and after some haggling, I agreed. The work schedule would be tight, and, in his words, this was an all-hands-on-deck project, with nights and weekends expected. I was also told this was a new client, and they wanted to impress. A couple of days before the project was set to begin, the chiseler called to tell me the engagement paperwork was on the way and check my email. I told him I had decided not to work the project after all, and he was furious. He screamed, "You agreed to work on this project weeks ago." I repeated his words, verbatim. "You should have gotten it in writing." Story 7. Someone kept hitting their car door into my car while I was in it, so I returned the favour. I was parked in a student parking structure and was stuck on a phone call before heading out. There was an SUV that pulled in next to me, and for a few minutes one of the girls had her door open while she was looking through the back seat. The door kept banging into my car, and I look over and see that she wasn't paying attention. When all was said and done, her other friend came out from the other side of the car, and they both left. I noticed the friend pointing out that her door was hitting my car, and that's when she looked and saw me sitting in my car. I shook my head at her after seeing that she was chuckling at the situation. Didn't say anything because I was still on the phone. They were long gone by the time I finished my call, so I pulled my car to park on the other side of her car and proceeded to slam my car door into hers repeatedly until some dents started caving in. My car's super old, so no biggie, but just because it's old doesn't mean people should be careless dicks about it. Anyway, it went fine, and I felt a lot better about the situation overall. Story 8. Want to let your children run around a store? Now you can be as worried as the workers are. This happened years ago while I was working at a craft store. Like most craft stores, there were walls of glass, ceramic, and other very breakable, very sharp items for sale, and this day I was stocking one of these fragile sections. A woman came in with what felt like 10+ children under 15, but turned out to only be 4 kids and let them loose to play tag Marco Polo in the aisles while she shopped. After I had collided twice with these kids because they weren't watching where they were going, I decided to hunt down the mum before they or I got hurt. I had worked well enough customer service to know that if you asked directly for them to control their kids, they would get mad and refuse out of principle more often than not. I decided to be sneaky and stand in the same aisle as her and pretend to be stocking something near her, and spoke into my work headset without actually pressing the button. "Hey, did anyone get the broken glass from aisle 13? No? Okay, then I'll be over there in just a moment to get that cleaned up." Suddenly the lady realised there might actually be danger in letting your young children sprint around a store, and she immediately gathered them all up and they stayed by her side for the rest of the trip. After this, I used it every time a customer decided we were their free childcare, and it worked about 90% of the time. Story 9. Neighbour kept parking in my spot, so I gave her a taste of her own medicine. Alright, so this might not be the pettiest thing out there, but it felt amazing at the time. My apartment complex has assigned parking spots, and each unit has one spot that's, yours. For weeks, my new neighbour started parking in my spot after work. At first, I let it slide, figured she just got confused or whatever. But when it kept happening, I left a polite note asking her to please use her own spot. The next day, I come home, and yep, her car is there again. She crumpled my note and left it under her wiper, like she was proud of ignoring it. So, I decided I'd just use her spot instead. Every day, without fail, I parked right in her designated spot. It took 2 days before she started leaving notes on my car asking me to stop. I kept switching spots with her until she finally knocked on my door to confront me. I just acted clueless and told her, "Oh, I thought we were doing a swap since you were using mine." She sputtered out some excuse, but she finally stopped. Now, every time I pull into my spot and see her car not there, it's a tiny little win. Story 10. Pass me over for promotion. Everyone gets new appliances. I'm currently benefiting from some petty revenge. Basically, the management company for my apartment complex passed over the woman who'd been here for 25 years for a new guy who doesn't know his arse from his elbow. One of those Neanderthal types with vacant eyes and his mouth always hanging slightly open. So this lovely woman now decides that her precious mission to save the company money is fruitless and will never gain her praise or compensation like she'd hoped. So suddenly, when I made my 4th complaint about my dishwasher, she just ordered me a new one. A C unit not working well? Let's get you a brand new, more efficient one. One button on your microwave stopped working. Here's a new one. It's great and I bet they're regretting it now, lol. Story 11. Sit in my seat and refuse to move. Enjoy being uncomfortable. Last week I took a flight from Athens, where I'd been visiting relatives, to London. It was a late flight. I was exhausted and the plane was full. I was in a window seat, which I'd chosen so I could rest my head against the walls and sleep. But when I got to my row, there was a guy in my seat. He had big headphones on and had his head turned away from me. I try telling him that he's in my seat. He doesn't respond, thinking maybe he can't hear me because of the headphones, so I gently tap him on the shoulder. No reaction. I try again. Still nothing. He doesn't even turn towards me. Edited to add that he's clearly not asleep. He's sitting upright, and I can see his eyes are open. I considered calling over a flight attendant to ask him to move, but there isn't one nearby, and I'm not in the mood for it to be a whole thing, so I just take the middle seat and quietly fume. A few minutes later, the young woman who is sitting in the aisle seat arrives and takes her seat. She is travelling with her friend, who is sitting in the window seat in the row behind us. They are talking to each other across their seats. Then the woman sitting in the aisle seat turns to me and asks if I can swap with her friend so they can sit together. I say, sure, no problem. Now at this point, it is important to point out that her friend is very fat, borderline obese, not fat shaming. I'm a heavy guy myself, but she's at least twice as wide as me. I probably would have swapped even if she hadn't been fat, but I saw a chance at revenge. As I get up to move, I see the guy sitting in my seat has turned around and realised what is about to happen. He doesn't look happy and gives me a look like he's saying, "Please don't move." I ignore him and swap seats. I spent the flight mostly with my eyes closed as I try and fail to get a nap. But I do occasionally have a look at the row in front of me, and I am very satisfied to see that the fat woman in front of me is taking up nearly half of the window seat as well as her own seat, and that the guy in my seat is squashed up against the wall of the plane. I hope he spent the flight thinking about how, if he'd just taken his own seat, he'd have been able to swap with the fat woman, and I'd have been the one pinned against the wall. Maybe next time he will think twice before he takes someone else's seat. Story 12. Playing the long con. 15-ish years ago, my dad broke one of my mum's dinner plates. Mum has the standard issue, green daisy Corelle dishes that were commonplace in the late 70s. This was the first plate to be broken, and Dad was horrified. He ran to Walmart and bought a plain white dish and stuck it at the bottom of the pile of dishes, hoping for the best. The rogue plate was discovered when my sisters and I had all gathered for a visit. As I am the youngest, I was blamed. Because I am petty, I decided that it would be wrong of me to not give my mum mismatched plates. This began my quest of buying random Corelle dinnerware and sticking them in her cupboard when she's not around. Star Wars luncheon plates? Perfect. Misprinted dinner plate? Don't mind if I do. Disney dessert plates? Clicks add to cart. It's been a hoot. But today was the plate stashing of which I'm most proud. Those green daisy dinner plates are available on eBay. I just added 3 of them to her cupboard. Someday, she's going to get all of those plates out of her cupboard and she's going to count the green daisy plates. And then she's going to realise she has more of them than what she started out with. Ha ha ha, to quote Stanley Hudson from The Office. It's stupid, but it's my thing now. Video, please consider liking and subscribing. Thank you for your time.